Alex Rios had spent his life chasing shadows. After years of combat, survival, and a long series of failures in trying to find a quiet life, the quiet was finally starting to feel like a dream. The city of New York stretched out below him, a neon-lit canvas of possibilities. Yet, as he stared out of his apartment window, the buzz of traffic and distant murmur of people were drowned out by the stillness in his chest. Nothing in his life had felt this quiet since the war. He should have felt relieved. Instead, an uneasy tension hung over him like a storm cloud, dark and silent. It had been 6 months since his discharge, and while the world moved on, indifferent, unaware, Alex remained in limbo. The boots were gone, replaced by casual sneakers that felt like a betrayal. There was no mission to complete, no orders to follow. Just silence. Then the broadcast interrupted everything. The emergency alert buzzed through his phone as he sat in his tiny kitchen, sipping coffee. The static hum of the city seemed to thicken, and his pulse quickened as the screen flashed bright red. Asterisk. This is not a drill. Asterisk. A momentary silence followed, then a distorted voice crackled through the speakers. Asterisk. Unidentified aerial vehicles have breached Earth's atmosphere. Global defense agencies are on high alert. Details to follow. Asterisk. The message cut off abruptly, leaving Alex staring at the screen, his hand frozen midair, the mug of coffee now lukewarm in his grip. What the hell was going on? Seconds later, his phone buzzed again. A call from Serena Carter. She was military, sharp, capable, and always one step ahead. She'd been the one who'd pulled him out of his self-imposed exile months ago. He'd been working as a security consultant since his discharge, but nothing ever truly felt like a real job. Serena had always been able to push him past that comfort zone, to remind him who he really was. He swiped to answer, but her voice immediately filled the room, breathless, urgent. Alex, I need you. Now. He exhaled sharply. What's happening? The report's true. The aliens, they're here. A chill ran down his spine. Aliens? He asked, disbelieving. You're serious? Listen to me, Alex, she snapped. This isn't a joke. They've been coming for months hidden. But now we know. They're here for us, for humanity. And they're not interested in making contact. He stood up, dropping the mug with a clink. His mind spun. Aliens. He'd seen enough in his time as a soldier to know that contact didn't always mean peace. But this felt like something else entirely. I'm not in uniform anymore, Serena, he said quietly, trying to steady his breathing. I can't just drop everything and follow orders. I'm out. There was a long pause on the other end, a breath of silence that spoke volumes. Finally, her voice returned, softer this time but no less insistent. Alex, this isn't about orders. It's about survival. Our survival. I'm not asking you to fight a war. I'm asking you to fight for your life. He froze, her words slicing through him. He'd always known that one day, the quiet would break. He just didn't expect it to be like this. He glanced at the window, watching the shadows of the city stretch beneath him. How? He asked. The government's gathered intel. They don't know who's behind this, if it's an invasion or something else entirely. But we know they're not human, and they're already here. You don't need to be a soldier to help, but... Alex closed his eyes, pressing his fingers to his forehead, feeling the familiar weight of his past, the duty he could never truly leave behind. Asterisk, he prompted, though he already knew the answer. I need someone who understands what this kind of threat looks like. You've fought enemies no one else could see. You can see through this. I'm sending a team to your apartment in the next hour. Pack your gear. We don't have time. The phone call ended before Alex could respond. His thoughts swirled with a dozen questions, none of which he had the answers to. He had no idea what he was walking into, but his instincts, those instincts honed by years of combat and survival, told him that this wasn't just another routine mission. This was different. This was something that could destroy everything. And despite everything he'd told Serena, Alex knew one thing: he couldn't run from this. 30 minutes later, Alex was standing in his living room, already packing his bag, shoving his old military gear into the duffel. The familiar weight of it, the vest, the combat boots, the belt, gave him an odd sense of comfort. It was as though the past was pulling him back into something he hadn't fully accepted. He wasn't the same man who had walked out of the army 6 months ago. He'd been broken, scarred, distant. But this felt different. His fingers hesitated over his sidearm, the cold metal a reminder of the war he thought he'd left behind. His reflection in the window caught his eye. The man staring back at him looked tired, hardened maybe, but ready. For the first time in a long while, Alex felt the pull of purpose again. A knock on the door cut through his thoughts. His hand immediately went to the weapon at his side, but he knew who it was. Serena's face appeared in the doorway seconds later, her sharp features lit by the streetlights outside. She looked him up and down, her expression unreadable. "Ready?" she asked. Alex didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked out the window at the darkening skyline, the silent city humming with the tension of a world on the brink of something catastrophic. "I guess so," he said finally, his voice low but steady. Serena nodded. "Let's go. We've got a lot of ground to cover, and not much time." The city was alive, but Alex didn't hear it anymore. All he could hear was the buzzing of his own thoughts, the distant roar of fear gnawing at the back of his mind. Whatever was coming, it wouldn't be stopped by conventional means. And it was coming for them. The convoy rumbled through the night, the headlights cutting through the dense fog that hung heavy over the city. The streets were eerily quiet for New York, no honking horns, no chatter from pedestrians. It was as though the entire world had suddenly stopped, holding its breath. Alex sat in the back of the armored van, his mind spinning. Serena was beside him, her eyes fixed on the road, her expression unreadable. "We're headed to a secure location," she said after a long stretch of silence. "We've got a team waiting to brief you. Intel on the invaders." Alex nodded, the weight of the situation finally starting to sink in. Aliens. He had always assumed that if the day ever came, he'd be fighting off some kind of military threat, a rogue nation maybe. But this was something else entirely. "How do we know they're not just misunderstood?" Alex asked, trying to keep the nervous tension from his voice. "Could be a misunderstanding. Could be just an anomaly." Serena glanced over, her eyes sharp, more intense than he'd ever seen them. "We've tracked their movements for weeks. They're organized, they're advanced, and they're getting closer. Misunderstanding doesn't destroy entire cities, Alex." Alex had seen his share of destruction, war, riots, terror. But nothing in his memory matched what Serena was describing. He rubbed his neck, feeling the familiar tension tighten there, a muscle he couldn't seem to relax. "What's the plan, then?" he asked, his voice low. "The plan is to survive," Serena said, her tone harder now. "We've got to know what we're dealing with first. The intel we have is fragmented, but we've pieced together enough to know they're not like anything we've encountered. Human resistance is useless right now." Alex absorbed the words, chewing on them. His mind went back to the last war he fought in, a brutal conflict that left him scarred in ways that only other soldiers would understand. This felt different, though. This wasn't about territory or politics. It wasn't about anything human. It was about survival, plain and simple. The van turned sharply, and Alex's stomach lurched as they veered onto an underground parking lot. The massive garage, dimly lit, echoed with the sounds of boots on concrete. The vehicle stopped, and Serena was out the door before the engine had even died. Alex followed her, instinct taking over. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of oil and steel. A small group of soldiers, all in tactical gear, stood around a holographic display of Earth. Serena approached the table without speaking. The men stiffened at her arrival, their eyes darting to Alex as he stepped in behind her. "This is Alex Rios," Serena introduced briefly, her voice firm but not unkind. "He's here to help. Let's get to work." Alex didn't offer a handshake. He didn't need to. He had seen enough to know that it was all business now. The briefing was fast and efficient. The man in charge, a grizzled officer with sharp eyes, spoke up. "Here's what we know," he said, tapping the holographic map. "They came from the stars. This isn't a joke, and this isn't a random occurrence. They're organized, and they've been infiltrating Earth's atmosphere for months, masked by solar flares and space debris. What we've seen so far indicates they're using advanced cloaking technology. They've been testing us." Serena's voice interrupted, sharp and clear. "What does that mean? Testing us for what?" "We don't know," the officer admitted. "But we've seen their abilities. Their ships, they're not human-made. We've recovered fragments from downed craft, exotic materials, tech that doesn't exist on Earth. And there's more. These beings are able to manipulate their environment. They're almost fluid in how they move." Alex frowned, his gut tightening. The notion of something that could control its surroundings, something that could adapt so quickly, it made his pulse race. He had seen too many unexplainable things in his time as a soldier, but this felt different. "You're saying they could be shapeshifters?" Alex asked, his voice low, trying to wrap his mind around the idea. The officer nodded grimly. "Yes. And that's not the worst of it. They're studying us, our biology, our behavior. We don't know their goal yet, but we do know one thing: they can't be stopped with conventional weapons." Alex's eyes narrowed, his military instincts kicking in. "So what's our move, then?" Serena spoke before the officer could answer. "Our job is to find out what they want. And if they're a threat to Earth, eliminate it." The room grew silent. Alex's mind was reeling. Everything he thought he knew was upside down. There were no orders to follow, no clear mission. It was all about survival now, and that wasn't something he was used to. It was always about winning before. Winning in combat, winning for a cause. This was different. The officer continued. "We've sent a few field teams to investigate possible landing sites, but we need someone who's familiar with unconventional threats. Someone who's fought the unseen." Alex looked at Serena, her gaze unflinching, like a soldier who'd been in the trenches for too long to be afraid. "And you think I'm that guy?" Alex asked, a hint of sarcasm in his voice. "You've fought in wars that no one else understood," Serena said, her voice steady. "You've survived situations where the enemy wasn't just human. Now you need to do it again. You're the best chance we've got." Alex didn't respond. Instead, he turned his attention back to the holographic map, studying it with a newfound intensity. The officer was right. He had fought ghosts in the past, literal and figurative. But this was on a whole new scale. A sudden commotion broke the tension, a signal from one of the field teams. The officer's expression darkened as the message appeared on the screen. A news sighting. Unidentified, moving fast. "We've got a breach," the officer barked. "Get ready, everyone. This could be it." Alex stood, his hand instinctively going to the sidearm holstered at his waist. He wasn't a soldier anymore. But when the world was at stake, when survival was on the line, that part of him, the part that never truly went away, was always ready. Serena shot him a glance, her eyes hard with determination. "Let's go. This isn't a drill anymore." As the team mobilized, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that they were already too late. The sky above was thick with storm clouds, the dim, overcast light casting a pall over the city. Alex's breath came out in sharp, shallow bursts as the team filed into the armory. The hum of heavy equipment and the metallic scent of weapons in the air only added to the oppressive atmosphere. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were being led into a trap. He had lived long enough to know that no mission was ever as simple as it seemed. Serena stood at the head of the room, her posture commanding, every inch the leader. "We've got two teams. One will stay behind and provide support. The other will move in and engage. We'll take them down quietly and fast. No alarms." Her voice cut through the tension like a blade, drawing all eyes toward her. Alex studied her with a quiet intensity. He had been briefed, of course. He knew she was capable. But there was something about the way she spoke, the way she carried herself, that told him this wasn't just another mission to her. This was personal. A soldier beside him shifted, his boots scraping against the concrete floor. "Do we have any idea who or what we're dealing with?" he asked, his voice heavy with skepticism. "They've been cloaked for weeks. We don't even know if they're human or not." Serena's gaze hardened. She was unflinching, despite the obvious danger. "Whatever they are, they're a threat. They've been studying us, adapting to our weaknesses. That ends today. You're ready for this. I trust you all." She nodded at Alex, then to the rest of the team. "You've fought together before, and you will again. Keep your heads sharp, and stay close." Alex's stomach twisted as he double-checked his gear. The hum of his rifle's power systems was a constant reminder of the unknown ahead. He wasn't sure what exactly they were going up against, but one thing was clear: these invaders weren't here for a friendly chat. The data they'd gathered was more than enough to convince him of that. It was about survival. No negotiations. No second chances. A soldier to his right, a broad-shouldered man with a deep scar along his jaw, caught his eye. "You ever dealt with anything like this before?" he asked, his tone matter-of-fact, though a hint of concern lingered in his voice. Alex hesitated. His military career had spanned decades, countless operations across the globe, but nothing had ever been like this. Aliens. Or whatever they were. The unknown was a battlefield Alex had never been trained for. "I've dealt with unexpected threats," Alex said finally, his voice low. "But this is new for all of us." The scarred soldier nodded, clearly understanding the weight of the statement. The conversation drifted off as the team gathered their weapons and started filing out of the armory, stepping into the sleek transport vehicles that waited on standby. The ride to the site was silent, each soldier lost in their thoughts, the only sound the hum of the engine and the occasional radio crackling to life. Alex found his mind wandering back to the moments before the mission. Serena's words echoed in his head, asterisk. "They've been studying us, adapting to our weaknesses." Asterisk. It was a chilling thought. These invaders were not only powerful, they were strategic. They had been observing humanity, learning from them. And they were closing in. The transport vehicle ground to a halt, the tires crunching against gravel. Alex's senses sharpened, his body instantly going on high alert. They had arrived. The location, an abandoned warehouse district on the outskirts of the city, was eerily quiet. The sort of silence that made your skin crawl, as though the world itself was holding its breath. Serena motioned for the team to spread out, each soldier taking position in the shadows. Alex crouched low behind a stack of crates, his rifle at the ready, eyes scanning the environment for any sign of movement. The fog rolled in, swirling in tendrils around the buildings, distorting their shapes into ghostly silhouettes. Minutes passed like hours. The world felt suspended in time. Alex's instincts screamed that something was wrong. The hairs on the back of his neck stood on end. He glanced over at Serena, who was crouched beside him, her eyes locked on the shadows ahead. She, too, sensed the unease. Without a word, she raised a hand, signaling for silence. The entire team froze, hearts pounding in their chests, muscles tense. Alex's grip tightened on his rifle. He had been in enough firefights to recognize the tension in the air, the palpable silence before the storm. Then, from the darkness it came. A movement. Fluid, unnatural, too fast for the human eye to track. A shadow darted from one building to the next, barely visible against the backdrop of swirling mist. Alex's breath caught in his throat. That wasn't just any human. It wasn't even close. "Contact," Serena whispered through her calm, her voice a cool whisper in the chaos. "Stay sharp." The figure moved again, slinking like a predator on the hunt. Alex's pulse quickened. He could see it now, a distorted shape that seemed to shift as it moved, its features flickering in and out of focus like a mirage. It was as if the very air around it was bending. "This isn't a person," one of the soldiers muttered under his breath. "No, it's not," Alex replied, his voice low, tinged with a mixture of awe and dread. Serena's voice came through the comms, firm and controlled. Form up. We're going in. The team moved out in unison, shadows in the night, approaching the creature from different angles. As they closed in, Alex's heartbeat thundered in his ears. He could feel the alien's presence, a wrongness in the air. This wasn't just an enemy. It was something far worse. Something that could change the rules of survival itself. The figure stopped, its head snapping towards them. Its eyes, if they could even be called that, glowed with a cold, unearthly light, and for the first time, Alex understood the true danger of their situation. These invaders were not here to conquer, they were here to test. And the test had just begun. The alien's eyes glowed, a sickly hue of green that flickered like dying stars. It wasn't human, far from it. But Alex couldn't shake the gnawing sense that whatever it was, it had been watching them, learning. Its movements were too fluid, too deliberate, as though it knew exactly what to expect from the team. Serena's voice crackled through the comms, her tone even. Hold your fire, wait for my signal. Alex's fingers tightened around the rifle's grip, his knuckles white. The air around them felt charged, thick with anticipation. He had faced many enemies, but none that had made him feel so vulnerable. There was something primal about this creature. Something that didn't belong to any battlefield he had ever known. The alien's form rippled again, blurring for a split second before it reappeared. It moved faster than the human eye could follow, darting between the warehouses like a shadow. The team remained still, every muscle coiled, every sense heightened. Stay calm, Alex thought to himself. Stay focused. Serena's voice came again, a low command. 3 o'clock, cover the left flank. Alex, take the right. Move on my mark. The team shifted into position, a well-oiled machine despite the eerie tension. Every step they took was calculated, every breath held as the creature's presence seemed to grow heavier with every passing moment. Alex's heart pounded in his chest, but he forced himself to remain steady. His training had prepared him for chaos, for uncertainty, but this felt different. He could sense that the alien knew more than it was letting on. Mark! Serena's voice sliced through the quiet. The team sprang into action. Alex dashed to the right, his boots thudding against the gravel as he took up a new position behind a stack of metal crates. His rifle raised instinctively, but the target had already vanished. He swore under his breath. Where had it gone? Behind him, there was the sound of a loud crack, one of the soldiers opening fire. But it was too late. A blur of motion, a distorted shape, was already gone. The shot rang out into the night, but the creature wasn't there anymore. Then, without warning, a scream pierced the air, a guttural, agonized cry. It wasn't human. Contact! Another soldier yelled. On your 6! Alex spun around just in time to see the alien emerging from the shadows behind their rear guard. Its form flickered in and out of focus, like a mirage on the edge of perception. The soldier's rifle was useless against it, the bullets passing straight through its form, as though it were made of smoke. The creature lunged forward, a flash of claws and teeth, and the soldier dropped, his body crumpling under the attack. Blood splattered the ground, staining the dirt a dark red. Alex's stomach churned at the sight. No! Someone shouted, a desperate cry for help. Serena's command came in an instant, sharp and commanding. Regroup! Fall back! Protect the injured! Alex moved without thinking, his legs carrying him toward the fallen soldier, his rifle swinging in front of him, ready to take a shot. But the alien was faster. It was already shifting, its form reforming just out of his reach. The team scattered, taking defensive positions around the perimeter. It was like trying to fight a phantom. The creature was everywhere and nowhere at once, its movement erratic, unpredictable. Each time Alex thought he had it in his sights, it was gone. Serena! Alex called out, his voice strained. We need a plan. We can't fight this thing head on. We don't have a choice, she replied, her voice tight with barely contained fury. We push forward. We draw it in. Alex cursed under his breath. He knew she was right. If they didn't force the alien into a corner, they wouldn't survive. He needed to keep it distracted long enough for the others to recover. He moved again, this time more carefully, eyes scanning every shadow. His heart was hammering in his chest, but he knew he couldn't let the fear control him. Not now. The creature reappeared at the edge of his vision, a fleeting blur, but this time, Alex was ready. He fired. The shot landed, but the alien didn't even flinch. It kept moving, faster than ever before, its body weaving like liquid through the night air. How is it? Alex's words faltered as the creature lunged toward him. He didn't hesitate. The instant it was within reach, he dove to the side, rolling behind a stack of crates just as the alien's claws slashed through the air where he had been standing. His heart skipped a beat, the adrenaline coursing through his veins as he struggled to regain his footing. The creature wasn't just dodging their attacks, it was anticipating them, predicting every move they made. Fall back! Serena's voice was steady, though Alex could hear the strain in it. We can't win this fight in the open. Regroup at the extraction point. But as Alex moved, he realized something that made his blood run cold. The creature wasn't running. It wasn't retreating. It was driving them toward the extraction point. It was hurting them. It knows the plan, Alex thought, his mind racing. Asterisk, it's not just a fight. It's a test. Asterisk. He glanced over his shoulder, seeing the team falling back, the injured soldier being dragged behind them. His stomach twisted at the thought of leaving someone behind, but there was no choice. The alien was too strong. The team reached the extraction point, where the transport vehicles were waiting. The moment they reached safety, Serena barked an order. Get inside! Now! Alex didn't hesitate. He sprinted toward the vehicle, his breath ragged, his body exhausted. The creature was closing in, its distorted form flickering like a wraith on the horizon. It was too fast. Too dangerous. Just as Alex dove into the transport, he heard Serena's voice again, cold and grim. This isn't over. It wants something from us. And it won't stop until it gets it. The door slammed shut, sealing them inside, but Alex couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Whatever this creature was, it wasn't just a force to be reckoned with. It was a challenge. And humanity was its prey. The test had only just begun.